I think where AI is helpful is helping people understand concepts and learn information. I think going to AI and saying what stocks should I buy is not the way forward because there are so many different components to it. It depends on your age, your risk tolerance, where you live, all these different things. And unless you tell AI that, and even if you do, it still probably will just regurgitate what it's told loads of other people. So who knows? And at the end of the day, AI doesn't know what's going to happen in the stock market. So
Welcome back to the Project WealthWise podcast, where we talk with the financial experts of today on what anyone, especially youth, can do to master finance. I'm Kinjal, founder of Project WealthWise, and today's episode has a heavy focus on investing, with discussion on vital topics like AI and the money mindset when it comes to finance and youth. We are welcoming Gabriella Goddard, an esteemed finance content creator.
The following content is for educational and informational purposes only. Investing involves risk, and this should not be viewed as professional financial or tax advice. We strongly recommend conducting your own due diligence or consulting with a certified professional before making any investment decisions.
Thank you so much for being here, Gabriella, for coming out and being willing to talk about such an important topic for everyone, especially the young people of today, to know. So, I was wondering if you could start off with a quick introduction of yourself.
yeah, of course. So hi, I'm Gabriella. I'm 22 years old and I'm currently on a career break from management consulting. So I started working as a degree apprentice at 18. So I was working 4 days a week as a consultant, and then 1 day a week I was studying towards a degree in project management, which my company paid for because it was part of an apprenticeship program. And yeah, so I recently just finished that. I've taken a year off to just sort of relax a little bit because I was a bit burnt out and focus on my business a little bit, my side hustle income. And a lot of what I do and talk about is around investing. So, using content creation to spread the word of investing across all demographics and ages. So, yeah, that's a very quick introduction to me.
Thank you. And I think that's wonderful how, you're using social media to spread this knowledge to many different people.
Yeah,
That's
no,
great.
thank you.
So I was wondering, speaking of social media, what inspired you to learn about personal finance and share this knowledge with an audience online?
Honestly, it was during COVID and lockdown when I was super bored and I was just scrolling through the internet and seeing, all these people with these massive amounts of wealth, and it inspired me to start sort of my entrepreneurship journey and start different little side hustles and start trying to figure out ways that I can build my own wealth. And I had heard about investing before just through family and general media, but actually started looking into it. And when I turned 19, actually not even 18, 19, I opened my first investment account. And then over a couple years of investing, I realized what a crazy thing it is and how beneficial it can be if you do it correctly. And along with earning from my full-time job and my side hustles, I'd grown quite a bit of experience around growing wealth and learning how to save and diversifying income. So I just started posting about it on my social media because I didn't really have anyone to talk to about it. And yeah, I suppose I just used it as a bit of an outlet to inspire people and try and start more of a conversation around it.
That's wonderful. And I think especially over the lockdown, a lot of us picked up different skills that we didn't really know that we were interested in before. So it's great that finance was yours.
Yeah.
So what I want to ask you next, getting more into the conceptual stuff. So for youth who are beginning to learn how to invest, of course, we have AI coming out. People are using it for all sorts of things. So do you think advice for stock market trends can be taken from AI? Is it reliable enough yet or no?
I try not to use AI as much as possible. I try and do my own research. I think where AI is helpful is helping people understand concepts and learn information that is perhaps just more concise, sorry, and can make something simplified, maybe a complex topic or subject as part of finance or investing. AI can help simplify that, but I think going to AI and saying what stocks should I buy is not the way forward, because there are so many different components to it. It depends on your age, your risk tolerance, where you live, because taxes can be different and fees, and depends, all these different things. And unless you tell AI that, and even if you do, it still probably will just regurgitate what it's told loads of other people. So who knows? And at the end of the day, AI doesn't know what's going to happen in the stock market. So, no one can do that. So learning your own information and understanding how investing works yourself and making your own judgment calls is probably better.
Yeah, so it can be relied for like learning and knowledge stuff, but not for actively like trading or investing.
Not from my preference. I'm sure people have used it and they've done well, but I don't. I'm sure there's a lot of people who've used it and also done badly.
Yeah, and we're like always seeing in the news and stuff, that sometimes some companies release some great AI model, then the next day we're hearing that lots of people got inaccurate information, and we see people using it in the workplace and schools. So the question is obviously raised, can it be used for finance as well or not really?
Yeah, yeah. Again, it depends. Maybe in a few years it'll be a bit better, but I think there's so many scams out there as well. You don't know what's reliable. You could be using this AI software and maybe someone specifically coded it to influence you to buy a certain stock, and then raises that price or something. So you just never know. I think even just in general knowledge, aside from investing, I think we need to stop relying on AI so much to do the thinking for us. So we need to start actually learning ourselves. And if you don't know enough about the stock that you have to ask AI about it, then you shouldn't be investing in it, because you need to know what it is before you invest.
Yes, absolutely. So the next question, you sort of already answered it, but if we're really getting into specifics, to what extent do you believe AI should be depended on for general financial advice, like not just investing, but maybe budgeting tactics, saving hacks, if any at all?
So I think similar to general investing advice, I think AI is a great way for people to learn about concepts of personal finance, specific budgeting rules and definitions, and again, general information on anything they could find on Google anyway. But I think the problem lies when people are asking specific information about their personal circumstances. For example, telling AI they have £20,000 of debt, or that they've got this specific amount of money in this specific account. I think there's firstly a security issue, because a lot of AI isn't actually that secure yet. And secondly, if you're sharing that information with AI and someone gets hold of that, that's not ideal. But without sharing that information with AI, it can't give you specific advice. So I do think in general, you're just better off either learning about it yourself and relating what you learn to your own personal circumstances, or just going to an actual financial advisor.
The safety issues aspect. We don't even know if this is reliable yet. We haven't had it for the long term, and so many
Yeah,
people just pour in stuff into AI chatbots that they probably shouldn't be telling. So thank you for bringing that up. So what I wanted to ask you next is, what do you believe is the most important money habit that all youth should develop in order to maximize their chances of future financial success?
I mean, I think there's obviously two sides to the coin of building wealth. There's being able to save money and there's actually making money. So, of course, saving money is really important. And if you spend everything you earn, you're not going to be able to build wealth. So, learning how to accurately budget. But then there's the other side of it, in which if you're working a standard 9 to 5 job, you're not going to be able to accumulate the amount of wealth that perhaps an exceptional person could by just working for, yeah, a 9 to 5 corporation job, because you're just, any time you spend working equates to your money, and you're never going to be able to make more than that. So I think there's another really important part of actually learning how to expand your income and create more income streams, like diversifying that by either looking into investing or starting a side hustle, or picking up another job somewhere if you can. I know obviously there's a lot of different circumstances, and not everyone has the privilege to be able to spend the time working more or have the energy to be doing more. But if I could say to someone, the way to increase your wealth is to actually increase your income, because there's only enough you can save. And if you're saving every single penny you have, it sort of takes away the joy of being able to make money, because you're just saving everything, not actually enjoying what you earn. So, yeah, to summarize, learn how to save properly and also learn how to diversify income streams if possible.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you for sharing that. So what I want to ask you next is what is a detrimental mistake you've seen people make when they're in the initial stages of learning about money, and why do they usually make this mistake?
I think the biggest mistake is more so to do with the mindset and people seeing other people with money or seeing other people their age with so much more money than them or more opportunities. I think a mistake I see is people thinking that they can't do the same and thinking that that person's an exception or coming up with all these excuses as to why someone has got all these opportunities or all this more money than them than other reasons and not actually taking accountability for themselves. I, for example, could have just worked my corporate job and been happy with that and seen other people making lots of money and just blame it on, oh, well, they got handed the money or, oh, well, they did this and that. But actually, I looked at myself and thought, how can I take inspiration from them and start earning more money myself? So, yeah, that mindset shift of instead of hating on someone else for having more money or a better job, taking inspiration from that and actually learning from it and using it as motivation to try and better your own circumstances.
And the mindset is also so important because I think so many people believe that when it comes to, building wealth, it's all about just the skills, like knowing how to, I don't know, invest, knowing how to budget, knowing how to save. And skills are absolutely a huge part, but the mindset requires also such an important aspect.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's more important than the skills, to be honest, because if you have the skills but you're lazy and you don't have that motivation, then you're not going to get anywhere.
Yes, for sure. So the next question is, do you believe that young people, when investing, should use real money and real accounts and take risks while they still can because they're not depending on their own incomes to survive yet, or should they utilize practical tools like stock simulators instead?
Um, well, obviously, I've got to disclaim that I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't give any specific advice, but just based off my own opinion, I think obviously it's a big thing saying, oh, you're young, you should take lots of risks. I think that's true to an extent, but I think when people are just throwing away money and calling it risk and saying, oh, high risk, high reward, and putting all their net worth into one stock because they think it could go to the moon or whatever, or some TikToker said it's going to blow up. I think that is very silly. I think there still needs to be an element of risk management, and people still need to consider having things like emergency funds, having 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a separate bank account out that's easily accessible. So I think again, even with stocks, you have really safe stocks, well, considered safe stocks, and then really risky stocks, or you could invest in ETFs or something a lot different. So I think while you are young, it's you have you have more of a safety net, I suppose, that enables you to take that risk, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be risky. You can still grow a considerable amount of wealth whilst having a low or medium risk tolerance. So again, it depends on circumstances of that individual and how much they have and what their family circumstances are or job or whatever. But I think just because you're young, it doesn't mean you should risk all your money. If anything, when you're young, you want that to be your money working for you the most because you want it to be compounding and building up as much interest as possible. So yeah, I don't necessarily agree, but I do think someone my age, for example, with no kids or major bills or debts, is able to take more risk than someone who's in their 50s with a family and a mortgage. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I don't.
agree. And it's not, one size fits all. Like you said, it depends person to person. So that's a really important point to consider. The
Yeah.
next question I want to ask you is if a teenager wants to learn about, money management, wealth building, but they're struggling, what do you believe are the best resources that they can utilize for accurate and effective information?
Honestly, I think I know it's boring. I know a lot of people don't like it these days, but books. There's so many good books out there. The main two that I love is Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is the classic, and that's for general sort of finances and wealth building. And then another one more tailored towards investing is called Friends That Invest. It's such a brilliant book. It's got loads of pictures. It's really simple, sort of Gen Z language. And it explains all the basic concepts of investing and is more than enough to help someone start their journey. So those two books are probably my favorite. And then also just there's so much information on social media these days. You do have to be careful because there is a lot of rubbish out there. But you can sort of tell who's genuine and who's not. A lot of the time, if they have risk warnings and being very transparent, that especially with investing, you can also lose money. You can probably trust them a bit more than someone who's flashing, a Lamborghini and saying, I made this much from trading, you can too. So it's just understanding who's been genuine with their intentions and content that's spreading or not. But honestly, just search how to start investing or how to start budgeting, how to save more on any social media channel, and something will pop up that you can get inspiration from. I think there's plenty out there. It's just people needing to search for it or wanting to search for it is more of an issue.
Yeah, and when it comes to books, I feel like we start to underestimate them, especially in the age of AI and the internet. So, and there's so much valuable knowledge in there that people might overlook.
Yeah,
So that's a
definitely.
really important topic. The final question I want to ask you is, what do you believe is one personal mindset trait that anyone who wants to build wealth should master?
It's a bit cliche, maybe corny, but it's just believing that you can do it. I think there's a big stigma maybe these days that the only way you can make money is through a 9 to 5, and that everyone should strive to go to university and then go to a 9 to 5 job and then retire. But there's so many more options these days. I didn't go to university and I've still ended up doing well for myself, I suppose, or to my friends that I know didn't go to uni and they've ended up doing jobs and earning more than people who did go to uni. So there's not one path, and I think people shouldn't be confided to what society or their family expects of them. Just understand that if you really do want to do something, you can do it. It's just all about putting in the effort and the work and having a positive mindset, I suppose.
Yeah, believing in yourself again, that's something that's really underestimated. It's really important to master. So thank you so much for, being here today. This was a really insightful discussion. I'm sure anyone who's watching it will feel the same. So thank you for coming out, sharing your knowledge and advice. I really appreciate it.
No, of course. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you to our listeners for being here with us today for this episode. As always, if you're serious about your financial future and you want to support our mission as a nonprofit of financially educating youth everywhere, make sure to follow. I will see you on the next episode.